Well, hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us here today at CyberX. Thank you so much, Kat, for inviting me to moderate. This is a new role for me, and I'm going to do my best to keep the discussion lively and interesting and relevant and fun, because it does involve youth. But we're very, very fortunate to have two incredible experts in the area of cyber literacy for youth. We have Jennifer Flannigan from Actua, as well as Darren Laur from the White Hatter program, all the way from Victoria. So Jennifer's from Ottawa. So they have really dedicated their whole career almost to helping youth understand technology, understand their rights and responsibilities when they're online, understand the risks, and also have fun. So it's a tall order, but they have done a fabulous job. So I'm going to start with Jennifer. If you could really just introduce yourself, give us a summary of Actua and some of the accomplishments, which are many.
Thank you, Kathy, and hi everyone. It's really a pleasure to be here, and certainly this is a topic that is so timely. It's so relevant, and something that I certainly I speak on behalf of our team. I represent a lot of people who have very deep expertise on the ground in this area. So it's really my pleasure to be able to have this conversation. So Actua is a national charitable organization. We have been around for 25 years. And the mandate of the organization is to work with youth right from ages 6 to 26, so a very broad age range. And we work to build skills in science, technology, engineering, and math. So very relevant to cybersecurity, obviously. But we work more broadly across all kinds of literacy issues with science and technology. We represent a network of 42 organizations across the country who are located at universities and colleges. They employ undergraduate students in computer science and engineering and education and science who are out in 500 communities actually delivering programming. And so what that looks like on the ground is 350,000 youth every year engaged in activities that both build their skills in science and technology, but also build their confidence and their awareness of how these topics are relevant in their lives. The other two things to be aware of is, one is we focus the majority of our efforts on youth who are underserved or underrepresented in science and technology. So extensive programming for girls and young women, for First Nations, Inuit and Métis youth, for racialized youth, youth with disabilities, youth facing socioeconomic challenges, really very broad audience of youth. And our role sort of outside of the work that we do on the ground is to is around thought leadership in these topic areas. So talking to parents and talking to teachers and talking to policymakers about why this work is important, but also making it more accessible to people. And cybersecurity is such a great example. So we're putting kids online and encouraging them to develop those skills. We need to make sure that they understand how to keep themselves safe but often we talk to parents and we talk to teachers and other people in those kids' lives who need this stuff explained in very simple terms. So we have a role there that we're playing also as a national voice in this topic area. So just to give you a sense of how the cyber safety, cybersecurity piece is situated for us. So it's both from a safety perspective, of course, but it's also from the perspective of our work and our role in promoting these fields as future career options, which we all know that we need more of, more people pursuing these, and a more diverse audience of people pursuing these careers.
Right. Thanks, Jennifer. I know that I was in Ottawa at the Actua headquarters last year. I think at this time, actually, you had brought a number of thought leaders together, and you actually listened and incorporated some of these ideas into your programming, which is always really impressive. But I was amazed at how big this program is, how professional it is, and it reaches really from the far north, coast to coast, and it touches a lot of people in camps and workshops and the schools and the classrooms. So it's a fantastic program. So thank you for that and all the work that you do. Let's go on to Darren and talk about the amazing White Hatter program. Darren.
Thank you very much, and thank you for the invite for today's panel. So our company, the White Hatter, we've been around now teaching digital literacy and social media safety now for about 15 years. It came about as a result of what I did full time. So I'm retired law enforcement. I retired at the rank of a staff sergeant, and I specialized in the area of online investigations, both in the light and the deep dark web. But combined with Brandon, who is my digital Yoda, he's my son, he's got his master's degree in the area of social media communications. So we have brought my experience from policing and investigations from his academia, and he's a millennial as well. So we bring that into the company, and we are very much an evidence-based led company. We believe in let's teach based upon facts, not fear, and let's enlighten and not frighten, because the reality is the majority of our kids are doing super uber cool things online, and we older adults, boomers, we need to start acknowledging that fact. We really do. But to date, we've now presented to just over 500,000 teens from across Canada and the United States. We just presented in Malaysia not too long ago. And why? Because of the virtual studio that we have. It's a live studio. I mean, it's pretty cool, right? Like I showed you, like that's what I'm looking at right now. It is unbelievable what Brandon has done as a millennial to create a platform that allows us wide reach. So not only do we educate in the area of social media safety and digital literacy, but we also help people as well. We've now been credited with over 211 interventions of teens who were considering self-harm or suicide as an option, and they reached out to us for help, and we were able to help them. And as a result of that, we've now been recognized with 7 different international awards and recognitions for the work that we do. So like we like to say, we love what we do, how we do it, and why we do it. And now we get to do it virtually, which is really cool, right? And Brandon has brought that in. And yeah, a millennial, right? Like they're doing super uber cool things. That's a little bit about who we are.
Oh, that's great. Thanks so much, Darren. I know I tried to follow you on Twitter, and every day it was like, I'm here, I'm doing 3 presentations here. The next day it was another, you know, thousands of them a month. I'm like, oh, how do you keep up? But really amazing. Okay, I know. I have one question for you, though. You have to give me a 30-second answer, though, Darren. What is a certified clinical hypnotherapist and neuro-linguistic psychology practitioner? 30 seconds, go.
Look into my eyes and I'll tell you. I'm a certified clinical hypnotherapist, so I can use hypnotherapy for the purposes of dealing with things. But with my master's in neuro-linguistic psychology, I bring how to hold people's attention into all the programs that we do. So that's how we've developed it, integrated into our programs.
Wow. Okay. That's amazing. All right. Let's just get started here. I know both of you are so engaged in the community and in the schools. You're talking to youth. Mm-hmm. How has the pandemic really impacted the work that you're doing? Let's start with you, Darren.
You know, we're one of the lucky ones. It really hasn't impacted our company. In fact, if anything, we've gotten busier because Brandon was smart enough 2 years ago to pivot us to virtual. So when the pandemic hit, boof, we were already in the game through the studio and doing what it is we're doing. Now, there's no doubt that more youth are spending more time online. Why? Because as we're physically distancing, we're staying socially connected using social media, right? So as a result of that, more youth are online, which raises concerns as well. But to be quite honest, if anything, I think the pandemic has actually opened up more doors of opportunity for us to get into. The other benefit we've seen is that it's really now connected teens with parents. Because prior to the pandemic, parents weren't really engaged in the on-life world. Like I'm getting away from calling it the online or offline world. Academia, they call it the on-life world. It's just one world. And our kids today are the first generation to be risen in this world where there's nothing but digital. But parents, because of the digital divide, weren't really there, right? Parental abdication, as we like to call it. But what the pandemic has done is it's actually brought parents into this field. Now there's way more communication going on with the kids and the parents than there ever was, for sure. But I think from a business standpoint or our reach, we're actually reaching more students just because of the technology that a millennial like Brandon has been able to create to give us that reach. I think I answered your question.
Okay. All right. And what about you, Jennifer? How has this impacted you and the work that you're doing?
So from the perspective of the organization, similar to Darren, we were able to very quickly pivot to delivering online because of the nature of our work and because we had that competency as a network.
Yeah.
That said, our preference is still to deliver face-to-face because of the nature of the youth that we are working with. So we're proceeding. We can deliver fully online and then in hybrid models where possible. From the perspective of how it's changed the work in this area, though, we've certainly seen all of the negative and concerning indications of issues that have happened over the course of the pandemic. So because we're in relationships so deeply with community, we're hearing all of these incidents of increased cyberbullying and increased issues around victimization and other kind of exploitation happening online. Our experience, and I think I do agree with Darren in terms of parents being more, and as a parent myself, I to two little girls, but you're just more connected to how they're spending their days. That said, we've seen a lot of parents, a ton of parents who just have not, and myself included, there's too much going on. They are struggling to balance, online school and all of the other stresses related to the pandemic. And cyber safety and cybersecurity discussions or rules or whatever else in the home we have seen those kind of go out the window. And every time I have spoken about this or every time we speak, parents kind of echo that back to say we had some rules before, but kind of that is off the table now because I need to work and I have, a kid here and this, and I'm trying to, so we're seeing that, and that's being reflected in all of the partners that we work with from a cybersecurity perspective who are reporting increases in reported incidents of online victimization. So we're feeling that and seeing it, and working really hard to provide the resources that we have to kind of to support that. And then I'll just say quickly, we're also extremely concerned about youth who are feeling isolated. And we know that social isolation is, the number one risk factor of them being victimized online. And so we're very, very closely monitoring that with the groups of youth that we work with, as well as just being aware that not all youth in this country are connected via technology, and when they do get connected might not have some of these basic skills. So thinking about all of those things.
I'm kind of curious because, over working in this field, we get asked these questions all the time, and this is a tough one, but if you were to give one key strategy for parents right now in dealing with this new world and this whole kind of hyper virtual world that we're living in, what would that one strategy be that you would share with parents? Jennifer.
So our number one tip is just for parents to be actually having a conversation with their kids about how are they spending time online, who they're conversing with, what kind of apps they're using. And for a lot of parents, that is still not happening. I think there's generally an increased level of awareness of why that needs to happen. But for a lot, especially younger children, parents are not having that conversation right away. So, and a lack still of awareness about potential online dangers, especially for young kids. So we see it a lot with, games that 6 and 7-year-olds are playing, where there is a social media, chat function, and parents still aren't aware of that until there's an issue. So it's that conversation that we keep saying, important to have every day, talking to them just like you do. As Darren said, it's one world. It's to them, it's their world. To us, we're still thinking about it as two different worlds. So being cognizant of that and having those conversations, and then that's the first step. And then there's a bunch of other things around rules and guidelines at home, but it starts with the conversation.
I find too, like the parents, there's a difference between saying, yeah, I have Instagram, and actually understanding what it is and having the account and using it. So, it's a big difference. So the parents actually have to learn the technology as well. Darren, what are your thoughts?
Yeah. 3-part strategy: parental participation, right on target; parental communication, and where appropriate and reasonable to do so, parental overwatch, right, with hardware and software, but understanding that there is no hardware or software on the market that is 100% effective. But those are the 3 big ones with parents, right? But here's what I hear from the kids, right? Like, the parents want to teach the kids, but here's what the kids tell us. I try to show my mom and dad what this thing called Instagram is, but they have no patience. They have no patience, right? So if there's one thing that I can share with parents is that if you give your kids, because parents, we learn incrementally, A, B, C, D, E, F, G. Here's how kids teach: A, B, Q, M, Z, W, T. And it drives us crazy. So if there's one thing I can share with parents is if you give your kids a little bit of patience, you'll be amazed at what you learn. And by integrating with your kids, you're building huge parent cred as well. Although you don't want to play Fortnite, do it, because you'll be amazed at how much parent cred you'll get with your child and how much the interaction and the communication will take place. And the academia research pans that out, is that parents who engage with their kids, those types of children are far less likely to get involved in less than desirable behavior online.
Right. And I mean, for sure, asking your children, what do you like to do? Because if they don't like to game, then why take that on? I mean, the internet is a big place, so it's a huge topic. And so find out what their favorite activity is. Learn that platform. Having said that, now, I know with parents and caregivers and guardians, how do you share your strategies with them? And do you think that they're getting access to your resources and really understanding the value of them? And how could you improve that? So let's start, Darren, how do you do that?
We do it on a variety of different ways. So we're on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. We're on all the platforms, right? And they're all free. So that's one of the ways. We've also written a free web book now for parents that is available free of charge. It costs nothing, right? 21 chapters. It's basically a blueprint for parents on how to parent in this digital online world of ours, right? And then we also have built a free app that we give out to parents and to students as well. So it allows them to connect. What we find is that different parents learn differently, different modalities of learning, right? So what we attempt to do is we attempt to hit all those modalities of learning. But I'll be honest with you, parental abdication, for all kinds of different reasons, is one of the biggest challenges that we do face, right? Because especially, I think, Jennifer, you mentioned it, like we now know there's some anecdotal research and there's some good academic research coming out that during the pandemic, we've seen about a 20 to 25% increase in individuals who would connect with our kids online who they either don't know, love, or trust for sexually inappropriate reasons. Like, we know that is going on. So parents need to understand what the luring process looks like. Like, let's get away from teaching stranger danger, which is the old thinking, and let's start teaching based upon what the lures look like, right? But again, that's a part of education. And the only way we can do that is to provide parents with as many different sources that they can go to turn to that information. But the other cautionary note is that we found is that a lot of people who try to educate parents on this topic, they educate from such a high level that it turns a lot of parents off right away, right? Like we got to teach based upon the Barney Fife factor. And for those of us boomers, we know who Barney Fife is, right? From the Andy Griffin Show. If he can't understand it, then we shouldn't be teaching it, right? Is kind of our philosophy. But different types of sources and modalities is important to us.
That's great. What about you, Jennifer? How are you getting parents access?
Yeah, so similarly, we're doing it in a whole bunch of different ways whenever there's sort of an opportunity to engage with parents. So right from, we do a lot of media speaking about this. And I think sometimes, a 3-minute or a 4-minute media hit about the basics and it's just, not only for parents who haven't really been thinking about it, but as a reminder, it needs to be constantly reminded, like, oh yeah, I haven't really checked in with my child in a while about what they're doing. We certainly have the same, so resources that we promote on our website, and I want to make sure that we add the resources that Darren's talking about. And again, it's really organizations like Actua's and others who have a national platform. We don't have to develop all the resources, and certainly, it's not necessarily our expertise to always do that. And that's why it's so important that we're partnering with other organizations who do have that expertise so that we can share those resources. We interact with, close to 1 million parents a year, very directly. And so we have the opportunity to share that with them. I do think that there is a very significant space for parent training on this. Parents are incredibly eager to have this given, delivered to them in a way that's very accessible. And above all else, exactly what Darren said is so important. And that is that parents need to get the information in a way that's actionable for them. And accessible. And they also, because usually parents go looking for this when something goes really wrong, also need to know where to turn when that happens and, how to react.
And just to comment a little bit further, a part of educating parents as well is letting them know that the vast majority of our kids are doing super uber cool things online. Like, I find that too much education focuses on the negative and not so much the positive to deal with the moral panic and juvenoia that's out there surrounding this topic. Again, we need to be heightened and aware of those issues, but I think parents also need to understand that there's so many different things that kids are doing online that are so positive, getting them jobs and opportunities, all kinds of really cool things. And that's one of the things that we do in our parents' presentation, is that we balance, we find that balance, which is really important.
And critical. I will just add one thing, is that what we're seeing is that paranoia, if it's not balanced, leads to parents, and mostly parents of girls, pulling them offline, right? So your screen time is gone. Someone tried to send you a nude photo on Snap. You're losing the app. That's it. And so the danger, because they don't understand it, is making, and that is, as we know, because women in technology has been set. We've had so much hard fought action to get progress. We are hearing from a lot of parents that and they're treating not in all cases, but many, their sons and daughters very differently when it comes to this. So one of the main points we say to parents is, if something goes wrong, like, you need to have a relationship where if something goes wrong, they will tell you. The last thing you want them to do is kind of be afraid that you're going to take their device away or make them uninstall the app. So it goes right to the heart of the diversity work that we're also trying to advance in this area.
Yeah, a question came in to ask, what are you doing to educate parents on the positive things that their kids are doing online? So I think you kind of have touched on that. Specifically, are you able to communicate with parents some of those positive things as well?
So I'll say, we happen to be talking about cybersecurity and safety. The majority, 80% of the work we do is to promote and to work with parents to talk to them about why it's so important that kids have digital skills and STEM-based literacy. So the majority of the work that we're doing is to educate parents on that. This is a much smaller part. It's incorporated into everything we do. But yes, that the number one thing is and Darren's mentioned this, is it's so much more powerful and impactful to give kids digital literacy skills to then empower themselves to keep themselves safe than the kind of fear-based, don't do it, kind of messaging. So we very much work from a place of providing programs that build those digital skills and allow youth to then apply those to real world scenarios. So it's very much building out that muscle around innovation and problem solving and creativity. And we're doing the same thing with parents. So our number one goal is to have more youth be literate and pursue these careers.
Awesome.
And I mean, to build upon what Jennifer just said there, I mean, how cool is it that we have a senior high school student, First Nations here in this province, who developed an app to allow her to share her First Nations language with the rest of the world? I mean, how cool is that? It's all about, like, when we present to parents, it's a balance. So we believe in enlightening and not frightening, based upon facts, not fear. And so, yeah, we need to talk about some of the less than desirable stuff, but we spend just as much time talking about all the positive things that STEAM. I will add an A into your STEM because I think arts is an important part, right? Just look at Apple and how artsy they are. Look at video gaming and the design of video gaming. So I think arts is also a part of the STEM programs that are out there right now, in our opinion. But again, it's that balance. And that's one of the things that we hear from parents. Parents, after they take our presentations, come away saying, you know what? I came into this presentation in red alert status. By the end of our presentation, they all say, okay, we're down to green alert now, because there's all this dis and misinformation out there about all this. Because if it bleeds, it leads in media, right? So it's only the negative stuff that gets most of the attention. Not enough attention is being focused on all the positive stuff surrounding digital literacy. Because like it or not, teens who become good digital citizens, who can code Python, HTML, JavaScript, C++, there's a huge benefit to them when they graduate high school for job opportunities in this world. So that's the balanced approach that we need to be taking with parents. Let's not just frighten, let's enlighten through facts and not fear.
Okay, so let's move into the schools now, because we've talked about the home. How are the schools? Do you think that they're doing a good enough job of talking about cybersecurity practices and best practices, or whatever you want to call it, around cybersecurity in the schools? Darren?
Depends upon the district. It depends upon money they have to donate to that kind of stuff. I mean, we've seen a lot of schools that are moving ahead. We do find that a lot of schools are behind the 8 ball, though, because by the time they design a lesson plan, because they're not staying current, that lesson plan is already dated, and the kids are going, hey, that's old stuff, so they're not going to pay attention to it, right? So, but there's other schools that are staying on top of this. But, I want to give a big shout out to the librarians in the school, right? Like, the librarians, to me, are the human form of Google, right? Without a filter bubble, right? Like, and one of the things that we're seeing schools concentrating more on now is more around the issues of digital literacy and fact checking and critical thinking issues surrounding what teens are seeing online, which is really important. Having said that, I am starting to see now schools moving more into the issues surrounding coding, and I think that is really cool, but I still think there's a lot of work that needs to be done to educate basic teachers on these issues, because a lot of them come into it without any knowledge.
Yeah. And what about you, Jennifer? What are your thoughts on that?
So similar, I mean, mixed in terms of, and I think it is more, sometimes at the principal level or even at the level of the teacher. So I've, for a number of years, in a very, personal, anecdotal way, we get the media use policy that comes home at this, in September. And it has driven me crazy for, the past 7 years. And I always write across, and no one's ever followed up, but I write across it, I'm not signing this, and neither is my 5-year-old, who can't even read or understand any of this, right? It's that checklist of like, I will not do this online. I will not do that online. It's a terrible, ineffective, but it's still being used, and it's being used by a lot of schools in the absence of having something better to use. And then often, those conversations are happening if a teacher is aware or they've received training. So one of the things that Actua does, the Actua network across the country, is teacher training on first and foremost on integrating STEM and digital literacy into the classroom, but then specifically working in these elements of conversation around online safety and security. And they're talking now about this, which I love, in health class and in other types of classes where, they're certainly aware that kids are spending a lot of time online, and when issues happen, it impacts them greatly at school.
Right.
But they need more resources, and there's a massive amount of stretch happening for teachers. We did a big survey with teachers just in the start of the pandemic to ask them if their feelings about professional development around digital skills, and above everything else, the good news was that they all recognize how important it is and how much they want to be able to integrate that into the regular curriculum. But many of them reported not having access to enough professional development, or just not having the ability, whether that's because of resourcing or whatever else, to participate. So, we're working on that to be able to do more, more teacher training. We engage 25,000 teachers a year.
Wow.
But there's a lot of teachers in this country that need that.
There are.
And just to be,
oh, go ahead.
Sorry, just to be fair, the principals, I agree with you. Those forms that they send home, you look at them and go, number one, a lot of them are so dated, they have no relevancy anymore. But the only reason the principals are doing it, to be very honest, coming from a legal background, is for liability protection to the school and the district, because schools and districts are now being sued by parents over some of these issues. And we follow that case law quite closely. But I would agree with you that the forms that they're sending, there's a different way that they can do it that is way more desirable to cover off that liability side of the equation, which principals and school districts have to be alive to in today's world where you can be sued, right? And we follow a lot of those cases very closely as a company to stay on top of those as well.
That's great. I guess specifically, do you have any of your resources that are incorporated into any specific curriculum, and what grades would they, work into, and what subjects would they, specifically be helpful for and beneficial for, and how do you get those into the schools, and who are the recipients that are most interested in getting hold of them? Jennifer?
I'll let Jennifer start off that, if that's okay, from a STEM standpoint.
Yeah. Okay. Yes. I mean, tons of the integration with the rest of curriculum is really important, because, as the days of just doing computer class off to the side, really, it's still happening, but it doesn't make a lot of sense anymore. So the key is, how do we integrate these digital skill building experiences, or hands-on science for that matter, into other areas of the curriculum. And Actua, the Actua network, depending on where people are in the country, that's what they do. That's why we exist, is to provide workshops in schools that actually help integrate these topic areas with curriculum from K to 12. The resources are all there. So it's through that mechanism, and we use that as a way to train teachers. So from observation, here's how you could do this with future classes. And then that gets followed up with opportunities for teachers to train more specifically and at a deeper level on these topic areas. So that's really delivered through the network across the country, and they're in tens of thousands of schools every year delivering these types of training workshops.
Oh, okay. So it's mainly workshops, or is it hands-on resources that they can just work into a subject or into their curriculum?
I would say it's both. So the primary delivery through actually being there and providing the training. Through COVID, it has been delivered virtually, but also through kits. Like, we do a ton of STEM-based kits that have gone into, especially schools who are not as connected, or communities where not all youth have access to the technology. So we're doing a lot of unplugged content as well in this area.
Now, would teachers just get hold of Actua? Would they go to the website? Would they phone you, or how would they get?
Yeah, don't phone me. But Just kidding. You can phone here. No, the office is closed, so no one will answer, but I'm just kidding. The website has a full, so someone can go on and say, okay, I'm in Victoria, or I'm in St. John's, Newfoundland, or I'm in Iqaluit, and they can find the local Actua member that's there, and then they go and they can get those resources. And we are delivering that virtually as well. So there's a lot of different mechanisms by which they can access that. And then the actual website has a whole section of resources as well. And then our social media channels, we're constantly sharing. We're also doing an upcoming teacher, a teacher institute that I don't even think has been promoted yet, but it's at the end of April. And we expect to have hundreds of teachers at it. And it's on the topic of digital skills and anti-racism.
Awesome.
And so we'll be doing, it's a 2 or 3 day course led by our education team. And yeah, so that'll all be promoted on our website as well.
Awesome. That's excellent. Darren, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, as a company, we offer programs specifically designed for ages. And again, we're taking the on-life approach. We're really getting away from calling it on or offline, because in today's world, this generation, first generation, doesn't know anything but digital. So being able to integrate it into all areas is important. So a really good example, what's really cool is how, like, our program now on intimate images, or what parents call sexting, which is a boomer term, or what the kids call nudes, is now being integrated into healthy human sexuality classes, right? Like, we shouldn't be treating them as two different things, because it's really one thing, right? So the way that we present is principles stay the same, diverse in application in the on-life world. And so that's the way that our programs are designed. So we got programs for 4, 5, 6, 7s, 8 to 12s, and they're specifically designed to hit that target group, to provide them with principles stay the same, diverse in application in all areas of the on-life world. And so we deliver that virtually through our virtual programs. We deliver it with a lot of free like we got a whole primer, teacher primer, on our website for educators specifically on the issues of digital literacy and security and safety issues, on what to do if all of a sudden a student comes forward and discloses that they just received a nude on their phone. What do we do? How do we deal with it? So those are all kinds of resources that we have in place that we provide. A lot of it is free, but you know, when we're teaching in schools, there's a small cost associated with that.
Right. And I mean, I'd also like to give a plug to the Center for Child Protection. They have a great website, needhelpnow.ca. And I mean, they've got some really good, we're very fortunate here in Canada as well for all the resources that are available. So Actua website, the White Hatter website, is it .com or .ca, Darren?
.ca.
.ca, okay. All right, let's move into kind of the future. I know that you're doing a lot of planning for the future, and I'm sure that involves gamification and music and all the cool things that the kids love. Do you have anything that you'd like to share about what your plans are for the future, and where do we see this going? You know, let's start with you, Darren.
I think coming out of COVID, we're going to continue to see this hybrid approach to education. Like, I truly do believe that. And so as a result of that, it's about learning how to use technology to hold attention. So, you know, given Brandon's My Digital Yoda and what he's done, we've really integrated what we see going on in Twitch, in Discord, in YouTube. I mean, just look at the LEDs behind us, right? I mean, so because we know that's where the kids are, that's what they pay attention to. So rather than recreating the wheel, let's look at what's really working with the kids in the spaces that they are right now, and then integrating it into the way that we're doing things virtually. So as a company, where we're going is very much on the virtual side of things. Like, we don't use Zoom. We've designed our own platform now to deliver things virtually based upon other platforms. Brandon has Frankenstein things to create this ability to do things. Like, he just did a conference for teachers in Alberta, and they were just wowed by what it is that he's doing and what we can do. Again, it's all about holding attention, because teens today are becoming Zoom exhausted. So are a lot of adults. Yeah. So having said that, the research is showing us there's things that we can do using technology. So if we can hit different modalities, so what we do through our virtual programs is we hit the visual, the auditory. We're now going to be developing, or we do have something in place now to deal with it kinesthetically, where the kids are now going to be able to integrate with us real-time live using the devices that they have with them as well, so that we're now capturing them kinesthetically at the same time. However, one of the challenges that we have that Jennifer noted, is there's a ton of districts and areas in our country where kids don't have access to technology. And that concerns me because they're the ones that are going to be left behind if we're not careful as a country. So that's kind of what we're doing as a company moving ahead, using the technology, using the White Hatter Virtual Studio to allow us to connect to a wider field, but not only being able to connect wide, but also being able to hold attention to encourage online learning.
Yeah, and that answers one of the questions that came up. What are some of the biggest challenges with online gaming? So I guess connectivity and dealing with networks in remote locations that you're probably dealing with all the time, Jennifer. What are your thoughts?
I mean, that's certainly a huge focus for our organization, and we're working very closely with some of the federal initiatives around both broadband access, but also, hardware and software access, which is still significant. And even when there is broadband and they do have, technology, can they afford it? Is it consistent? So, but I am confident, I am optimistic based on what the conversations that we're part of, that's coming quite quickly. There's a recognition of that. Through the pandemic, we've given out thousands of devices, and that's not even what we do. That's not our part of our work normally. But there's a need for so much integration of these types of efforts. There's organizations that exist just to get that tech into the hands of kids, but they can't have eyes on everything. So, if we see a need, then, and no one else is filling it, then we're going to do that. In terms of, what we're doing going forward, we're taking a lot of our cues from, as we always have, but we have a very active youth advisory committee, and we have a lot of youth that are sort of telling us what they want to see and what they don't want to see and how they want to see it. It's especially important when we're working with youth from communities who have been underserved, for us to be taking, direction from them, just like the teachers. I mean, we have either teachers teaching it or we have teachers advising us. Same with cybersecurity. We have experts like you, Kathy, and your colleagues who have been in the trenches on this, who see this firsthand. And really what we're offering is the delivery mechanism that we have on hand, the people that we have in communities, those relationships. And so moving forward, we're going to be doing, as soon as we can get back in face-to-face, we will. And in fact, we're doing a lot of face-to-face delivery. There are areas of the country where, we've done March break camps because that's been possible. So we'll be doing that as soon as we can. And then specifically on the side, do you want me to talk about our cyber security initiative? Or are you going to ask?
No, absolutely. That would be great.
So through Women and Gender Equality, so the government department, we're doing an initiative specifically to look at the unique experience of girls and young women online, or girls that identify with those groups. And so we've, as you mentioned, had this group of experts pulled together from law enforcement and from cybersecurity experts. There might be some people watching who have been part of those consultations. So it's called E2C, so it's Engage, Empower, Connect, and it was specifically developed for us to do a very contained, 6 to 10 week program with, in this case, racialized communities. So girls from racialized communities, who we would walk through a really detailed but fun experience over a number of weeks, where they would learn about cyber safety issues, and through the lens of digital literacy, through the lens of these are really cool jobs and they pay really well and they're plentiful and they will be in the future, promoting it that way as well. So as Darren said, none of it based on fear, all of it based on opportunity, but also based in their own lived reality. So what have they, because they've all experienced these challenges or seen a friend experience them. So that is being piloted at 3 or 4 sites right now across the country. And then essentially, once that's piloted, once we kind of iterate on the model, that'll scale across the country through our network. So it's specifically to address this issue. And then we take parts of that and integrate it into all the other STEM-based programs that are happening, so that there's always a kind of background conversation happening about safety and security online. Because as we've all talked about, this is changing by the day, right?
Yes.
And so, you know, staying aware and staying attuned to these issues is
It's really
if I can just build upon, you know, it does my heart good to hear Jennifer say that she's consulting with teens and youth, because too many adults believe that we think we know best when it comes to these issues, and we don't. That's not necessary. We may have life experience behind us, but I think the involvement of youth is so important. Like Jennifer, we have youth advisory teams that work with us to help guide us to hear what it is you're saying. I also think that one of the things I'm really working hard at is getting those teens who identify as female, getting them into the tech field, because we need more of you. And so they need to hear things like, you know, white hat hackers like me doing pen testing. We can start at $120,000 a year, depending upon, you know, in Canada in 2019, we had 182,000 openings for coders, and they couldn't fill all those positions. So again, getting youth involved, hearing what they want to see, and how is so important.
Yeah, and that kind of brings me to my next question for you, in that we're at a cybersecurity conference. We have, I don't know, hundreds of cyber experts from who knows where, mostly Canada, it could be around the world. And they all are enthusiastic. They're interested in helping the community, especially getting you know, young people involved in cyber literacy. How do they get involved in your programs? How can we harness this enthusiasm to really build the capacity and the safety and the responsibility and the security for the community? So I'll start with Jennifer on that. Do you have any ideas?
I think that's so great. And, you know, a lot of as the capacity for this content builds, it's really been based on really passionate individuals. Again, many of them are probably watching, who have taken this on themselves and have, you know, developed a workshop or developed something, you know, mostly for, you know, their child or a niece or a nephew or a neighbor. But that's still very valued. So it's like connecting with the local Girl Guide groups who are always looking for experts and role models and mentors to come in and talk about topics like this. Connecting with organizations like Actua's network members across the country. So depending on where you are, connecting with them and seeing if there's something that could be offered. Again, the mentoring and role modeling is so important for us. Every one of our programs across the country engages professionals in these areas, so that youth can see firsthand, like, oh, okay, this is what a professional in this area looks like, and we try to bring as much diversity to that as possible. So we bring in people who are working in the music field or working in art or working in, you know, healthcare to talk about their path and their story and what the opportunities have been. So I would say continuing to do those really kind of local, you know, if you see an opportunity to reach out to a school or to a group and offer that expertise, great. And then of course, through the groups that are doing this work as well, just connecting and saying, you know, I'd love to help.
Yeah, you know, it's interesting because, I mean, we all know this whole area is so broad, and there's so many specialties and so many experts in certain specialties. So, you know, how do you have this list of subject matter experts that you can call on when you have a question specifically about pen testing or encryption or coding or something along that line, or network security? Where do you find that body of people that are enthusiastic, that want to volunteer? So, I mean, how do you reach out to specific people, Jennifer?
For us, it's through, well, we have a lot of corporate partners who not only fund us, but also make their employees available to us for these types of things. So A lot of it's coming from that, frankly. That's where we get our mentors and role models. But then part of the, the networks that we have locally, it's not just all held by Actua nationally. All of our network members have those kinds of local networks. They also are within universities and colleges who are all doing, various interesting things in this space. So they connect in that way.
Right.
And then they have very wide parent groups. So a lot of parents who are in these fields, a lot of parents that are watching, you're probably putting your kids in our programs across the country or other things like it. So then they become involved in that way. So there's all kinds of mechanisms. We're not at a shortage when it comes to engaging folks like that. It's just always great to have more, because people are also really busy.
Yeah.
And it's one thing to want to do it, but then when push comes to shove, it's hard to work it in sometimes.
Finding the time.
I also think it's important to connect with people that don't have egos. And what I mean by that is there's so many people in our industry that were afraid to promote one another, right? Like a good example, Kat, who brought this panel together, met her on Twitter, loved her. And as a result of that, we connected. And then Kathy met you on Twitter, connected. And so I'm not afraid to promote other people who are in the space that I'm in teaching, knowing that, well, if I have a school in Waterloo who wants some education, why not use an expert there rather than bringing me in, right? So I'm not afraid to do that as a subject matter expert in my field. And so what I've done is I've been able to connect with other subject matters who have good academic and experiential backgrounds around the world that I can turn to, and we've built this network. And so with that network, we're talking to one another, we're sharing with one another on techniques and ideas to get ourselves out there. I just find that sometimes we're so protective of our silo that we're afraid sometimes to reach out to others. And we got to get, I'm not that way inclined. Like I just love bringing in other experts, as you know, Kathy, like I brought you in and several others into a discussion that I had with parents across Canada on coming back to school.
Right.
That's what it's all about, right?
Absolutely. Well, that's great. I mean, especially for a conference like this, where there are people from all over, and obviously they are interested and enthusiastic. They're taking time out of their day to be here. So, again, harnessing that power that we've got as a group.
And where the power really lies, I'll be honest with you, for schools, PACs, parent advisory councils. They have the power. They really do, right? Because a lot of times they have the funding to put programs into place that maybe the school doesn't have. So being able to connect with PACs is really important as well.
Great. A question came in. What do you think about cyber insurance for our kids? Much like health insurance, is there a play here? Darren?
Well, I'll speak. Yeah, as a company, we have cyber insurance in place as a company, should we get hacked and bad things happen and all that kind of stuff. I mean, I think the cyber insurance for kids is that I think it's really important for maybe parents to make sure that they're controlling the branding of their kids at an earlier age so that they control it and don't let others, i.e. cyberbullies, digital peer aggressors, take ownership of it and use it against them. I think that's the better way to go. But if you're looking at traditional insurance per se for younger kids, I don't think so at this point in time. For companies and corporate entities like myself, absolutely.
Jennifer, any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, similar, of course, as a company, we have cyber insurance, but I actually haven't, I mean, I've in a very cursory way heard of that for kids, but I haven't heard much of that kind of discussion yet. And I certainly would agree that a proactive approach is much more desired, and the earlier the better. I have a 12-year-old, and right now, and I think about it all the time because I am in this space, but she's, we have allowed her to have an Insta account, and that is monitored by us, but she's got, her grandmother follows her and her aunties and I understand how quickly that can go wrong, and that how quickly, dark accounts can be created and all the things that are happening. Because we have an open conversation about it, she tells me what's going on among her friend groups. But that's because I was able to start that conversation much earlier with her, and she knows I'm not going to freak out when bad things happen, because bad things will inevitably happen. But it's really important, and Darren just mentioned it about their digital identity. is talking about how that gets created and what that looks like, and empowering them to be the kind of designers of their digital footprint and how they appear online. And that is something that is extremely difficult at their age, you know, the age of younger kids, for them developmentally to understand the permanence of content that gets placed online is very, very difficult. And there's you know, there's such a trusting nature to most kids that, you know, they still don't believe that someone is, you know, until it happens.
Yeah.
They might not think it's going to happen. So I think I'm not sure. I'm going to look into that now around the insurance, you know, parents asking about that. But I just think it's never too late to start having that conversation. And that's the message that, you know, even people that are watching and I'm sure many of them do, you know, talk to your colleagues and talk to your friends and talk to anyone that will listen about how important it is for them to be having these conversations with their kids.
And the earlier,
and Jennifer, compounding the message too, right? Compounding the message, like you're saying, right? Because that part of our kids' brains that says, don't do that, that's really dumb, not fully developed into the early 20s, right? So it's so important that we're compounding that message over time. I mean, one of the things our main message right from the very start in all our programs is that everything you do online, as soon as you hit that send button, is public, permanent, searchable, exploitable, copyable, shareable, and sometimes it's all for sale. Never forget those 7 things, right? So being able to compound that message age appropriate throughout their life is important, including once they get up into the high school. I mean, we teach a program called Leveraging Social Media, how we show grade 10, 11, 12 students now how to use their social media to get into a college, university, or a job, right? Like there are things that we can do that we can use it, but owning your branding is important, right? And doing it from a young age, even if a parent just means you squat. You know, you said your daughter was 12. Well, we know that terms of service say 13, but people who say that are wrong. Because Instagram actually says those under the 13, as long as they have parental supervision, that's fine, right? There's no problem with that. But by squatting an IG account that is owned by your daughter, she now owns it, right? It'll stop another bully from creating an account using her name or whatever she's using. And that is a form of insurance to protect the branding as they're getting older in life.
I mean, we're hearing about parents, and I heard it yesterday from someone saying, like, I was going to name my child this. I mean, they're pregnant, but we changed it to get all the social handles.
Yeah, it's a strategy it's a strategy that is taking place with some parents now, right? So they're wanting to be able to control their digital branding, right?
And it's another important conversation that parents are having, and that certainly I've learned from this community as well, is just the importance of important role parents play that they don't understand around what they are posting about their child online. And
parenting.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, you know, there's so many related topics here around consent and around, you know, just basic privacy and how that gets, you know, how that gets respected, or, you know, parents will say on one hand, they'll promote privacy and the need for privacy, but then on the other hand, they're sharing wildly, you know, images and other things of their children. So it's, yeah.
And we have a whole presentation on that very topic for parents, right? The topic of parenting, right? And understanding that what you're posting today, although funny to you today, may not be funny to your child when they're in middle school. And the picture that you posted of when they were naked in the bathtub is now harvested by an online bully at their school and then posted publicly and used as a weapon against them, right? So again, these are things that, you know, we didn't understand, but over the past 5 to 6 years, we've got some good research to show us what's going on. So being able to educate parents on that component is important. But that's the challenge, right? You know, we were at a school of 1,300 students that we presented. We did a parents presentation, 3 parents showed up. No wonder there's a problem, right? Like, but you know, too many parents believe that this is too difficult to learn. I would say 13, 14 years ago, yeah. Today, it's not. It's not hard to learn and understand as long as you're finding an instructor who's doing it based upon facts, not fear, and enlightening and not frightening, which is so important with this with teens today, right?
Last question, and just 1 minute each of you. Jennifer, to move your program forward, what do you need? What, if you could, have a magic, button right now, what do you need to move your program forward to the next stage?
I mean, I'm not, the work that we're doing is built to be scalable. So the more resources that we secure, the more youth that we're going to be able to engage. I think it's ongoing recognition of why this is important at a policy level, at a level that, at a systems level. So we're on the ground, we're delivering these programs, but we need it to be supported through those kind of higher level system-based things. If I could wave a magic wand,
Yeah,
I would like to have every kid in this country have, internet connection and access to technology, because it's just widening the gap of youth who are, going to be prepared to thrive in the future. So, I mean, it's not about what Actua needs to do that, but it's recognition that there is a massive number of kids in this country who are facing various barriers that have only gotten worse over the pandemic. And I think also just really understanding this narrative around how the pandemic has disproportionately impacted certain groups. And, I've been talking a lot this week because it's International Women's Week, International Women's Day on Monday, about, what's happened to women in the workforce through the pandemic. That is no doubt going to hit this sector. If it, it already has, but we're going to see, the research and the data coming in, the numbers are terrible. So we need to be aware of that and what implications and impacts that's going to have. So it's around that. It's around access.
Okay. Darren, a virtual magic wand, what would you do to move your program to the next phase?
I love Jennifer's answer. Bing! All youth get internet and technology, right? Like let's close the gap. But number two, specifically to our programs, is share the message of what it is that we do. Like CAT, as a result of CAT, I'm now doing a virtual presentation in Waterloo next week. I mean, people know us on the West Coast of Canada, Western provinces, US, and that kind of stuff. A lot of people don't know who we are more eastward bound. And what stopped us a lot of times was flying us to these locations, because they don't have to worry about that anymore. Like all our programs, we can deliver all our programs $450 per school, unlimited number of students, unlimited number of parents. We can present both into schools and homes at the same time because we have that technology. So we try to keep the cost down and attainable as well. So, but just sharing that information, and then also sharing with, like, I didn't know about Actua. I had no idea. Well, guess what? I'm going to be creeping Jennifer once I'm done this to figure out a little bit more about what their organization is and that kind of stuff, so that when schools connect with me looking for this kind of stuff, I go, I got an answer for you. I got a good resource for you. So that's what I'm going to do as well. So there's my magic wand.
That's awesome. Well, I think we've come to the end of the session, and I really want to thank both of you, Jennifer. This was amazing, and the work that you're doing with Actua is incredible. I think that Canada is very fortunate a program like this, for sure, and especially that you're reaching so many people, parents and schools, and of course the young people, and really talking with such an important message. It's going to affect kids now and in the future. So again, thank you so much for all the work that you're doing. And Darren, same thing. I mean, you're just, you're out there and you're coming up with new ideas and just going for it. And you've done just an incredible job as well. So really want to congratulate you and Brandon on all the work that you're doing. And I think with that, I believe that we are finished this session. If you have any questions, please forward them to CyberX, and they will be posting this video so that you can review it and watch it in the future, and maybe share it with your family and friends and coworkers that weren't able to be here today. So again, with that, thanks so much.
I'm also, I can also be reached through at Actua CEO on Twitter. That's a good way to reach me if anyone wants to connect. So Actua CEO.
Excellent. Excellent. What are your other social media coordinates?
So actua.ca is our website, and then Actua Canada is the social handle for Insta, Facebook, Twitter, all the other channels.
Oh, excellent.
And,
Okay, that's
and
good
like
to know.
us, we're at www.thewhitehatter.ca. We're on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, YouTube. We're on all those as well.
Okay, that's great.
Thank you, Kathy.
Okay, well, yeah, thank you so much. Really appreciate the time, and it was really nice to see both of you, and great information. Thank you so much.
Yeah, for West Coast, thank you very much.
Okay, stay warm. See you later then.